My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to the AstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today, we'll be doing our, I guess now, quarterly Q&A. I'm trying to do these quarterly. Live on YouTube and Twitch, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub and youtube.com/TheAstroHistorian. Let's get to the office. Hello, my name is Paul. I do lore stuff on the internet. Right now it's focused mostly on Star Citizen, but I'll be doing some other stuff as well. So I'm going to lay out some groundwork, and I'll probably have to repeat myself a couple of times. First of all, this is a live stream, so if you're watching this, it's not a pre-recorded video. There will be a video coming out this weekend, or tomorrow, on the religions. I'll try to get out tomorrow. It might end up being on Sunday. What was I going to say? 404, Paul not found. I'm sure a lot of people will ask questions about development and stuff like that. I'm going to try to stay away from a lot of those development questions unless they pertain specifically to lore. If you're interested in those sorts of things, I do a weekly show called The Office Hours on twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live, if you want to join us for that one. So, Happy, Alexander Weber, Squirrel Lord, Connor Clark, Darionator, Silent Control, Joe Freak, and Wallen. Thank you so much for that. Welcome everybody. Hey Darsh, how you doing? And Connor, welcome. We need a full lore video of Senator Strong. I'm not going to bring that up too much, but yeah, that's going to be something that I'm planning for Triggerfish for sure. Hey there, first time here. I have a question that has burned me up since I first began playing. Why are there no major cities in the meadow biomes of Microtech? There's two answers for that. Number one is the development side, and the other one is the lore one. The development reason is because they haven't built them yet. And likely the lore reason is similar. It's either they're waiting for the development to see if they want to build any of those cities there. But it's also more than likely Microtech is owned by a company called Microtech, which is what it's named. And there's just no real reason to build in the plains biomes. While it's beautiful, it doesn't give Microtech what they need, which is colder temperatures on an average basis, with relative access to water. That frozen lake that's outside of Microtech, I'm sure, is pumped. I'm sure they pump the water from that lake into the city to help them kind of go along. They don't really need much else. Microtech purchased the planet specifically because of its colder than normal temperatures, so that they could run their servers and other technology at more optimal temperatures. But the honest-to-God answer is probably because CIG hasn't come up with it yet. One of the things that you learn when you start following Star Citizen lore is that if you're concerned about a gap or a missing piece of the puzzle, it's likely because the lore writers don't want to write the developers into a corner and let the developers develop. The key thing to remember about the lore is that while the lore is cool, it's there to support the gameplay. And they kind of have a symbiotic relationship. Without a decent world building and story, then the gameplay is going to be shallow. But without good, engaging gameplay, a story is not going to matter. Story and world building don't matter. So they have to kind of go hand in hand. Yo, what's up? The video you did on RSI Zeus blew my mind. Really? I mean, it's a pretty cool story. It's very old. And I looking back, I got some things wrong with it, too. Good luck with the stream, dude. I enjoy your work. Keep it up. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, Radar Echo. How you doing? Doing fine. Local brewery was closed. Private event, so I went to the supermarket beer to hold me over. Supermarket beer isn't that bad. Especially where you live. I'm sure it's okay. Have they put any lore together for the other areas in ArcCorp? It'd be cool if they started using those areas of urban-based missions quests. I think that's their plan. The answer is you'd be surprised how many companies call ArcCorp home. I'd have to go through the list of companies again, but at one point I caught like 5 or 6 companies. I think like Gemini Weapons, their headquarters is ArcCorp. It doesn't specifically say Area 18, but that would be a cool thing to do, is to have a Gemini weapons facility where we can go buy a bunch of Gemini guns in at like Area 12 or whatever. But Captain Stable questions are not going to be in stock. We're just hanging out and talking, so you can just ask the question Nova if you have questions. Have they addressed any of the proposed reforms for Imperator Leilani? It's been a few years. I can't see much of the platform being implemented in lore. They have. Now, one of the biggest problems that Leilani Addison is having right now is that she's an outsider, dealing with a very entrenched politics in the Senate. So she's tried to propose some minor changes, which just have never gotten through. Her major accomplishment at this point is effectively open sourcing regen, which again fits right into her kind of mentality of like move fast, break things, a technological advancement at all costs. So my alerts probably aren't working properly. If we had a like a subscription or something like that, a lot of that stuff's gonna be turned off for today. Just because of this one. It'll be on for a later stream, though. Thank you so much for Nova for that 9 months of support, and Axis for that 20 months of support. Question, do they celebrate their clone rebirth dates in verse, or just the original birthdays according to lore? You're not really a clone. I mean, the question is up there. It's up for debate in terms of philosophically and even legally in the verse right now because of how new it is. But it's so new that like the technology was released in 2950. In game right now, it's 2953. No, yeah, 53. So regeneration's only been around for 3 years. Move fast and break the empire. So is Mars a green planet in Star Citizen or no? Like green, just not breathable? As far as I can tell, no. It's still red. It's not like green blue Mars that you would expect for a terraformed world. It's still Mars, but it is also breathable, is kind of how they're going for it. Question, are there any glaring holes in lore, like something you expect there to be lore on, but there isn't? Yes, there's a lot of stuff like that. There's not a lot of discussion about the First Devaran War. There's not a lot of things for the... Gosh, I'd have to go through with a more fine-tooth comb, but there's like gigantic holes in the measures. Like you'd know all of the measure stuff, but we know just the very basic overview, the kind of glazed top of what the measures are. And a lot of the creatures are very generic. We just know what they are and where they're from. That's about it. So. And then again, that has to do with a lot of that the writers don't want to write the gameplay into the corner. So, you're good, Access. My bad. I was wondering how much information is there on military operations that have occurred. There's a lot. I'd have to look up the total, but it's over 10 for sure. Every invasion by the Vanduul of a planet has been deeply categorized in lore, like several pages long, and in some cases even tactics being discussed, and specific battles. There's operations against pirates, which have been discussed. There's a lot of like stuff that's just kind of offhandedly mentioned, like this ship took place in this ship took place in this, but like those operations just sort of like hand waved, and some of them are more very specific. So, hey Neoe, how you doing? Question: is the Ibrahim sphere a personal sphere, or is my imprint in a sphere with others so they can get that can get damaged, sphere be damaged, my imprint be mixed with another imprint? As far as I know, Ibrahim spheres are a gigantic collection database, but you can't necessarily get your print mixed in with others. If it's damaged, then the imprint will default back to the last Ibrahim sphere that you imprinted on. And again, the thing to remember about Ibrahim spheres is that humanity is playing with forces they have no comprehension about. All they know is that it lets you come back from the dead. That's it. It's been 3 years. They don't even know the long-term ramifications of the problem. They just know what some problems are, and that some people have literally speed-runned permadeath on this process, because it's been around for 3 years and we know what happens when you die. So, yeah, it's all we know is that if a Ibrahim sphere is damaged, your print will default to the last imprint you made before. What do you think would like to be the first animals in game? Based off of what we've seen in that CIG has shown, the Kazi Grazers, the space cow, or the what are they called? The storm walls. One of those two. I've always felt that the only reason Addison got voted in by the fan base was the feeling that the fan base electing her would force CIG to give AI blades, so people could solo their big ships. I know it's not. I know that it's not going to happen. I kind of tend to agree. Is that I think the election of Addison was more based off of the idea that if they elected a person who's AI, then CIG would think that that's prioritizing AI. They thought that this was CIG hinting that they were going to prioritize AI. And so they wanted to have her be elected so that they could not just have AI blades, but have more advanced AIs in the game. Not realizing that all that they were really doing was changing future missions where you're dealing with AI. Instead of rogue AI going crazy and trying to kill something, being done by a kind of super secret, illegal AI operation, it's just going to be official government sanctioned. It's definitely changed some of the narrative, but yeah, I do think that it's a bit of that problem. Question: is there any lore on how many ships a Bengal can carry? Like, what's the average size of Squadron 42? So let me pull up the squad. I'll show you real quickly because it's actually interesting. Let's see if I can pull this up properly. Part 3, let me see if that's right. See if I can find it, because there's actually a graphic that CIG showed off. At one point. It's really old, so it may have changed. There's always risk of retcons. But it's in the writer's guide. Going through all the writers' guides real quickly, just kind of skimming, because it's an image. According to the star map, and we know how updated it is, Mars is not habitable. Oh, it's definitely habitable. That's just fucking wrong. Okay, well, I think I'm almost there. No. Need to be there. It's not in the writer's guide. Thought it might be. I know I've seen it. Maybe it's in the Loremaker's Guide. Trying to find it. I'm not, because it's in a weird thing, because it's like, it's not called the Writer's Guide. I know, actually, I think I know where to look it up for. What's the search for? No, I'm not finding that either. Ugh. So there was a series that the writers did. I'm not finding it right now, so I have to go back and kind of look for it a little harder. I'm not going to sit here the entire time. Where they would ask players to help them write the lore. I know because I actually participated in it and got some of the stuff that I did into it. And one of them was about squadron designations. Or it was like how you designate fleets or something like that. Yeah, I'm still not finding it. Yeah, I'm not finding the actual things that referenced. So, as a result, I can't tell you. I don't know exactly. I'm going to go off of my memory, which is not 100% true. So don't take this with a giant, a caveat that I'm probably wrong in some aspects here. A squadron is made up of 4 flights, and each flight is made up of 6 fighters or bombers. So a squadron is a total of 24 fighters or bombers in total. Yes. Yes. That's generally the total. So a Bengal is likely able to hold multiple squadrons because it's pretty big and has multiple decks. So that's off the top of my head. I would gather somewhere around 100 to 200 fighters or fighters, depending on the different sizes, because the Bengal can actually carry retaliators as well. So, in fact, the interior space of the Bengal's hangar is big enough to fit an Idris. You just can't fly an Idris into it. All right, so now I got to go through this. There was a terraforming disaster in 2125 that killed almost 5,000 people. Yeah, but then they actually terraformed it. It's been terraformed for like 800 years. Question, do you know if there's a limit of distance that can be from respawn point before it doesn't work? No, because it's used, the concept uses inner space, which is sort of like quantum entanglement, where like your mind is connected to your imprint, or your consciousness is imprinted to your imprint. At the same time, using like quantum entanglement sort of ideas. Question, what are the chances of your fan lore for the Redeemer gets officially adopted? Low. Humanity don't know what the fuck they're doing with these now, exactly. Today's Space Spider's birthday. Go wish him a happy one after this. I will. Thank you, Roy. Sorry, I'm now behind on a lot of stuff. Question, do we have, oh, let me check something quick. Do we have any indication? Indication that AI tech research is going to continue, especially under the new Imperator? Probably. I mean, the Imperator is almost certainly not going, I mean, the Imperator is going to be around until 2030, like our time, because that's when they'll be done 2960. So, question, what do we have in lore about the Banu and their combat prowess? Like, do they hold their own against the Vanduul? The Banu don't fight wars the way any other species does. Their way of fighting war is more about distraction and disengagement. The Banu don't want to fight in a straight-up fight. The Defender is not designed to be able to kill an opponent. It's designed to lure or chase away an opponent from a convoy, for instance. So the Banu aren't known to being very good mercenaries in the sense of like the way humans would, but they definitely do have mercenary Suli that specialize in kind of security. So, because again, the Vanduul are trading partners with the Banu. At least some Vanduul clans are. So, I have a more personal lore question for you. If someone someday they add an alien race to the playable character creator, purely hypothetical, what alien would it be, or would you just be human? Tavaran. The Tavaran stories are really cool, and I like their culture. I like the Banu too, so that would be kind of torn between the two, but almost certainly, if I had to choose between the two, it would be Banu, but I think Tavaran's going to be the first ones we get, if we get them. But AI blades already exist without Addison. Yeah, but there's a whole thing about that. I think people were thinking that, like, by voting for Addison, CIG would relent and give them more AI, rather than the limited AI they already had. I think there was more people looking at everyone else going, ew. I don't know. So this is a lore Q&A. Yes, it is. They covered this in the AI UI video. The one that they just released. Yeah, I watched a little bit before it went live, and they did cover that whole thing. Question, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one, but it has to be asked. Is there any doubt that every system will face some level of scrutiny when it comes to producing them? Oh, of course not. There'll definitely be some levels of changes that'll happen between each system. That's the reason why systems are written pretty broadly. The reason why Pyro got changed so dramatically in terms of its composure, in terms of like having actual livable planets, is because it's the second system in game, so that's important. And they wrote the lore for Pyro before they had the technology for landable planets. So, being the second system in game, they needed to have a place where people would actually explore the planets in like habitable environments rather than being boring and just being dead rocks. Because if you look at the lore behind them, a lot of it is just dead rocks. So yeah, there'll definitely be some changes to like planets and some of the details with those sorts of things as they kind of flesh them out. But as I've said before, if you look at Hadrian probably will change, but probably will still remain the same concept, because Hadrian has no terrestrial planets. It's all ice giants and gas giants. But its big thing is derelict space stations. And its big landing zone is known as Keltu Reef, which is this human version of a Banu flotilla. A bunch of stations that have been lashed together and connected with little kind of access points so you can go from different places. So it's like a giant bazaar that is also just a huge station. That in itself is likely not going to change that much because it's a unique and interesting like system. And even though Hadrian is likely going to be one of the first, let's say, 20 systems we get, there's no reason for CIG to artificially change the entire nature of that system in terms of the planet makeup, because by then they'll already have multiple planets. So, and the fact of the matter is that Pyro, at its core, is still Pyro. It's never changed. It's always been an outlaw place where like the idea being different factions of outlaws and more wild and kind of combat sort of situation. So, yeah. I have a question. What information do we have on Vandal kingships and how many have humans destroyed? As far as I know, only one, and that was Admiral Bishop at the Battle of Vega, Battle of Vega 2. Vandal kingships tend to not show up until the battle is already about to be won by the Vandal, or at the moment when the Vandal need them to show up to break the backs of their opponents. But we don't know much. The X-12, which was captured by humanity, was hinted at being a Vandal kingship, but it's actually not. It's probably more because it was said its size is similar to that of the Indefatigable. I'm not going to say the word the way I think it is, because people get mad at me when I say the word that it's actually supposed to be said right. Like the battleship, an old battleship that the UEE had. It's not. I'm not going to say the actual way you say it, but because people get mad. It's not. That's not how you say it. It's one of those words where if you read it, you say, "Oh, it's this," but it's not. It's not said like that for whatever reason. But it's like it's about the same size as an old battleship. It's still big, but a kingship is supposed to be much bigger. So we don't know a lot about kingships. We have theories, because those are what they have in like UEE intelligence services, and like there's an entire division of anthropologists and sociologists who are working with the UEE at the University of Moscow, who are studying captured Vandal stuff. They're like xenolinguistic experts as well for Vandal languages and stuff like that. So I like how they said Earth is actually going to be living. They even released photos of cities that are going to be there. Yes. Microsoft PowerPoint. Question, are data runners the main way communication, or is there a relay system and data runners are corporate government stuff? They both work. Yeah, there's a relay system. Whether the relay system works is information is transported via probably just radio, could be lasers or other communications. They haven't specified it yet. From relays to relays, the Asiato relays. And once let's say if you're sending a message from, say, Stanton to Terra, it would go through the different chains, and then once it reached the Terra jump point, there would be a comm relay at the end towards that jump point. It's not there right now, but I'm sure in the future it will be, which will actually have several drones attached to it. And those drones they'll then download that information into those drones, and those drones will then go through the jump point as kind of an automated system. And once they reach the other side of the jump point, they'll either dock with the other relay on the other side, or transmit their information to that relay and then have it continue on, and then that drone would dock back onto that side and then be reused again. The problem is that it's likely that those sorts of transmissions, unless they're high priority, they wait until critical mass happens, where they have a certain number of messages that need to be sent through the jump point, and then they load them onto then the automated systems load it onto the drones and send it through. So the actual lag time is pretty intense for messages from system to system. The reason why info runners exist is effectively as a faster way of getting information to and fro, and likely safer. So when you're dealing with, say, financial information, you probably hire an info runner. So, if that makes sense. People have postulated that the Xi'an spirit war may suggest that the Karthaka are an advanced AI species. Could Addison's election of the UE focus on AI potentially cause a renewed interest and tension with the Xi'an? Possibly, but Addison and the Xi'an get along pretty well. Question: how are fleets designated? There's not a ton of information on that. The main way that we can gather, the person who knows a lot about this is Jail, but the main way that I've figured out is you have likely a fleet for a sector or for a region, but we don't know what sectors are and how they function because they haven't really explained those. So, like, for instance, the second fleet we know is around Vega, so it's probably a Vanduul front sort of group. But the second fleet itself is also broken up into combat groups, so there are different combat groups inside that fleet, so you rarely see the fleet all in one. And I think there are 7 fleets that have been mentioned, and it could also be a situation where there's a first fleet, a second fleet, a fourth fleet, a 9th fleet, a 7th fleet, and a 13th fleet, which are all just designations held over from when the military was much larger during, say, the Tavaran Wars, and they just kind of kept them around. For instance, 6th Platoon exists, but it doesn't, or Squad 42 exists, but it doesn't mean that there's a Squadron 1 through 42. There isn't, actually. Some of them are just done as a way to confuse the enemy. There's even retaliator-sized elevators, yes. Which of those lore holes you mentioned earlier would you want to focus on first? Any theories that lore will be? I would say mostly the stuff around the major conflicts. Like, I'd love to see... We need to know more about the Mezzers. And we need to know more about the wars. Because those are such huge events in the history of humanity, and especially of humanity in, like, relations, human Xeno relations, that it kind of changes how you view the universe. Distracted Yeslate. Happy birthday. No, happy Friday. Just hope the devs get plenty of rest over the holidays, because next year looks like it's going to be full sprint. Yeah, it does. Ooh, it does. Thanks for answering questions about the Banu, Paul. Cheers. No problem. I'm trying to get through a lot of these. Just kind of got caught up on that. Pyro's a testbed for their new settlement creation tech. Yeah, that's kind of how it changed. The second was a self-inflicted kingship. I don't remember there's a second kill. I know there was definitely one on in Vega. Is there any lore on actual creation process behind the Halo belt gates? Seems like it would be a great topic for megastructure lore. Nope, nothing there, because they haven't even done it yet. Yeah, it's indefatigable. Yeah, something like that. Because if you pronounce it incorrectly, it can get dangerously close to a slur for folks who are queer, like myself. So. Did you see the new quantum travel effect leaks? So I'm gonna be very clear. The quantum saw was a work in progress, and the problem with it is currently a lot of the stuff that was mentioned is brand new. Like the guy who did it, I think he took it down since then. A lot of the stuff he mentioned was stuff that was directly contradicting both statements that have been made by the gameplay developers as well as the lore team and Chris Roberts himself. Well, things change, obviously, but I hesitate to call them leaks because it's just a dude who worked on Star Citizen and then got sniped for their work because they're good. They did good work. Obviously, if you've seen it, it looks great. And they hadn't worked for Star Citizen for almost a year. So, based off of what I saw, it looks fine. The only issues I have to do with gameplay stuff. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense logically that you have to do a complete stop to do quantum travel, whereas if you're doing quantum boost, you don't. And a lot of the reasons why have said it in the past doesn't mesh like in lore from the gameplay developer side of things. Them describing the lore doesn't make any sense as to why that happens and this doesn't. So it's a mess basically. So while I will say. I will say that that it looks cool. It is. I would take nothing but it looks cool. It's pretty. That's pretty much what I'd say. What's the current status of the war against the Vanduul? Last we heard was the operation was the Battle of Oberon, which took place in 2946, and we won, smashing a Vanduul clan to pieces. But that is it. That was the first engagement that the Retribution was used in. I think a lot of that information of what's going on with the Vanduul War is going to be kept kind of hush-hush because it's most of what Squadron 42 is about. Question, is there any lore why lasers are used for everything from mining to salvage to medical care? Because it's cool. The reason why a lot of this stuff is laser based, it's not actually laser based. For instance, the medical beams that you see, what you're seeing is a transmission of, I think it's supposed to be like nanobots. So like the thing you have that's the vial that's full of different colored liquid, all of that stuff, the medicine that's in there, is actually tiny bits of medicine which are held onto by micro machines, tiny machines, nanobots, that are then effectively gravity beamed into you. So that's the last I heard of the work in progress lore of how it functions. So the answer is it's a lot of what we see isn't actually lasers. It's just people call them lasers because they're lazy. It's a mixture of gravity, like tractor beams. Some of it is direct energy cutting. Some of it is, as we've seen, like vibration technology. And the answer is it's a lot easier to use those sorts of things than it is to try to maintain heavy equipment and machinery on the edge of space, because a lot of this stuff kind of combines this a lot of the stuff that would be multiple different types of machines into one unit. Like, I can guarantee you, if something like the portable medical device that we have in Star Citizen existed in reality today, medics would love to use it because they don't want to carry around a gigantic, bulky satchel with, you know, a bunch of different types of medical stuff that would require them they need to be able to save people's lives. Having something that's just a handheld portable thing is great. And so a lot of it is just convenience. Do you accept any lore questions? Yes. Any lore questions? Infoner is like a fast express courier? Yeah. Do we have anything on lore about human alien hybrid species? Nope. Humans cannot mate. This is not Star Trek. Question, do you see other ship manufacturers being created in the near future? Possibly. Hello, Lord Daddy. Hope all is well. It's going okay. Nice out, Luminalia. I should have worn my well, it has red, so red wouldn't work. Small Drake mining ship would be awesome. It's an automatic ad breaks when the ads happen. You know how many Bengals have been created? No. Are the fleet numbers just placeholders, though through history? They could be. Are humanity and the Xi'an allied against the Vanduul? No, actually. The Xi'an actually have positive relations with the Vanduul. They hate each other, but they do have a trading relationship. The only species that seem to be in active conflict with the Vanduul are humanity and, as a result, Tevarin. The Tevarin, who are not part of the UEE, also have conflicts with the Vanduul, and have beat the crap out of them. Hey, Tech Zero. How's your stream doing? Well, it's going okay, Trusen. Off-topic question. With the Rambler being, I'm not going to answer that question. Off-topic questions, you can ask me on the Astropub stuff. I thought you had a wife. I do have a wife? Luna and Pan. Okay. Everything in Star Trek is beam-based too. Yeah, because it's cool. The honest-to-God answer is because it's cool, but a lot of it is also just convenience. Like, for instance, the multi-tool, the Pyro multi-tool is just incredibly convenient for what it does. Yeah, but we want to touch stuff. I mean, yeah, but that's a development issue. It's a lot easier for them to develop beams than it is for them to have tactile gameplay like that, because they'd have to animate it every little bit or have some sort of technology developed for it, which the answer is it worth the time and effort to do that versus doing beams and then having those teams work on doing other content? Now, of course, CIG will probably go back and add some more tactile stuff to it, but for 1.0 Star Citizen, you're going to get Beam Citizen, which personally I'm okay with. More moving parts and wear and tear, but it's only one part. It's only one tool, and you can have all of the. It's easy to streamline logistical support to fix it. Is there any cyberpunk like worlds like other than ArcCorp? Pharaon is kind of like that. Humans can't mate with other species, but there'll be a lot of willing to try. There's been some tabloid headlines I've seen inside the game which reference Tevarin and humans and Banu and humans having relationships. But question: are the military allied in respective support from the Xi'an or Banu against the Vanduul? No. Feels wrong that other races are cool with the Vanduul. Are we know any alien ships that are in concept in game, excluding the Trip Taker? Yeah, there's the large Xi'an freighter. There's a bunch of like this. I think it's the Volper bomber. There's a bomber that the Xi'an have, which we haven't seen. But question: what's the lore behind the X1, if any? It actually does have some pretty extensive lore. I believe it's the same person who designed the M50 designed the X1. So it just kind of it was done by him as a kind of they're trying to kind of compete in the same market with more of a luxury version of a human competing with the Nox. But yeah, it's designed by the same developer or the same creator of the M50. This is pretty cool. Is there a system in lore that has oceanic planets? There are multiple ocean planets in the Star Citizen. One of them. I'm trying, like, there's Nemo, which is probably the biggest one, which has oil, by the way. But I mean oil, I mean petrol, black gold, Texas tea, freedom juice. And I'm not fucking kidding. It's an entire ocean world that has massive amounts of petrol on it. So, yeah, you can imagine what happened to that planet real quick. What system are you most interested in lore-wise and why? Magnus, because I've always liked that system, and it's where my character would be from. I struggle with how old ship designs are in the verse. Does nobody anywhere ever do any research ever? In real life, the last 500 years have seen immense advances. So, Simon, I'm going to give you an example, and I want you to tell me, fundamentally, do you know the B-52? Do you know the A-10 Warthog? How about the M2 Browning heavy machine gun? Or the M1911 pistol? These are all weapons and ship and planes which have been in service, in some cases, over 100 years, and are still in service, mostly unchanged. Now, obviously, the B-52 is different from when it was originally produced. But the B-52 is likely going to be continuing to serve in the United States Air Force with its current role almost to over 100 years. There have been 3 generations of the same family who have served on the same B-52 bomber. So the answer, why would the United States not update the B-52? It's old technology. Why don't we just build new bombers? Well, because of the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a lot of advancements that happen in Star Citizen are slow because artificial intelligence is outlawed. So everything that is done by today, or in the verse, is effectively the most advanced version of what we have today in reality. The most advanced AI that we're allowed to use is called expert systems, basically dumb AI, like the closest the almost to the edge of AGI. We did actually develop AGI. The problem is that AGI kept fucking up and killing things, so they outlawed it. As a result, all of the logistical support and like networks required to keep those sorts of things running means that it could take, say, it takes 5 or 6 years to develop a new ship. And once you've developed that new ship, then you have to produce those ships in quantities that can supply a massive amount of like customers or locations. And then you have to build all the parts that then support those areas, get people trained up in them. And in some cases, you know, it may take 20 years for a full rollover of new equipment to happen for any military unit in the Star Citizen universe because of just how many and how dispersed the humanity is. So the answer is, it's very difficult to actually support a lot of those these structures. As we have even today noticed, you know, people still use T-55 tanks, or T-55, I can't remember the name of it. I think it's right. Because they work. They're tanks. You know, they unless you're facing against the brand new technology, and even like the M1 Abrams was built in the 70s and still being used. So it's kind of a situation of, technologically speaking, we're kind of stunted, and because of the kind of growth of humanity, it becomes very complicated to do that. And then you add on top of that, humanity was controlled for almost 500 years by a despotic dictatorship, which ran humanity into the dirt, technologically speaking. Because instead of actually caring about innovation and change, if you innovated and changed, that means you could be thinking outside the box, and thinking outside the box is dangerous. So you would go get blackbagged and thrown into jail. So instead of innovating and changing, you would cater to the whims of the dictator. And dictators like big, flashy things. So we have, for instance, Project Vespa, which was a strange attempt to weaponize terraforming. Never worked. Billion-dollar boondoggle, or billion-credit boondoggle, probably trillions of credits that have been thrown into a giant money pit and burned. And that's a great example. It's like, it's effectively what you're looking at is humanity has basically just dragged itself out of a dark age. And as a result, from 2800s to 2950s, we see these huge leaps and bounds in technology because humanity had been held back for 500 years. So I know I went a little bit over on board on that one, Simon, and it's not just you. It's just I heard this argument so many times that it's like it's based off of a fundamental difference in how people view the universe compared to, I would say, how I personally view the universe, and also how the CIG developers view progress of time. Basically, technology doesn't march forward relentlessly forever. There's sometimes you hit snags, and sometimes you fall down. Do we know any of planet systems locations that are dominated by one Earth culture? I say. Almost certainly. Which is mostly Japanese. I mean, the whole beam citizen came up because the description of what CR did not want. Malakin, you seem to be very salty today. Is there any lore on what aliens thought about humans? Yeah. Generally speaking, the Xi'an find us both terrifying and fascinating. The Vandul just like a good fight. The Tavaran see us as brutal imperialists, and the Banu see us as best friends. So, did you know the lore behind the Genesis Starliner? Jared H told me he wrote the lore for the ship. There is. There's a huge. I'll give you the crypt notes. The Starliner was built by Kelly Kaplan, current CEO of Crusader Industries. She came up with this idea called the roll and go technique, which allowed for Crusader to build, to use the same assembly line and build specific, like, custom built Genesis on the same assembly line as the generic Genesis. So someone could order a bunch of, like, a flight company. So, like, the Meridian Transit is one of those. It's kind of like, Delta or American or Virgin Airlines we have today, that kind of stuff. It's that sort of transportation, that space flight, human transportation companies. If Meridian wanted a specialized luxury transport, they could get that as a version of a Genesis, plus, say, 10 normal Genesis, and they have the advantage of that luxury Genesis uses the same parts as the regular Genesis. So the Genesis Starliner took over the entirety of that industry pretty quickly, and became, like, the de facto ship for a while. And recently there's been a couple of competitors, but we haven't heard about any of those. My guess is that once the Genesis Starliner comes out, we'll start to see other companies. My guess would be RSI, maybe Origin, and maybe even, say, like, Drake, kind of try to compete for those different versions of transportation. What other professions exist in lore apart from those in game and research and data running? I mean, there's a lot. I could go pretty much any kind of profession that exists today or will exist in game has existed. So, probably go to the exam so I can sleep again. All right, Foxbat. Is there any lore on the Apollo and how it's done? Its drone system works. There's not any lore on the drone system, but we do know that the Apollo is kind of old. It's at least since the 29th century. Because there's a vid series, a series of like action schlock movies called I can't remember the name of it. But it follows a crew of an Apollo versus a bunch of stuff. So. Question: which system has the highest amount of Earth-like planets? Which has one, and which has won the biggest area? So the biggest like region of space for system is Kiel, which is like 495 AU. I would say Ellis probably. There's no really like. There's very few Earth-likes. I think there's only maybe one, possibly two. There's a handful of Earth-likes that exist in Star Citizen, but Terra is a big one. A lot of planets have to have some level of terraforming to be functioning, even if they're close to being stuff. So. The electronics have heavily been updated in your examples? Exactly. And that's exactly what's happened in the Star Citizen lore. The Gladius is a Mark 6. The current Gladius in game is the Mark 6 Gladius. And it's said that if you tried to climb into a Mark 1 Gladius versus a Mark 6 Gladius, it is very different. Like someone who knows how to fly a Mark 6 Gladius couldn't fly a Mark 1 Gladius. So, and that's effectively what it is. They're like Flight 4 Idrises. So like Idris has been changed to the point where it's almost entirely different. So yeah, basically instead of building new ships, they update the current ship because the current ships are still in production. A lot of the parts still exist. So they just update the interior. And a lot of those ships are also being phased out. So almost all of the Aegis ships, which are, hundreds and hundreds of years old, almost none of them are in service anymore. The only exception is the Javelin, which has been in service since the end of the 27th century. So. Simon Wolf, you're just wrong, my dude. Like, I get it. You don't like it, and that's fine. You don't have to like every aspect. But as I always say, like, if you don't like an aspect, don't make up a reason why you don't like it, and then say that's bad. It's okay to not like it. It's okay to say you don't believe it, and that's fine, and that's your personal opinion. But people need to like remember that sometimes your personal opinion is wrong. Like, for instance, I think the lore behind the Storm is fucking stupid. It's absolute asinine. And a lot of the lore behind, there's a lot of the lore behind, like, say, the rock is like, I don't know why the fuck this happens, or the fact that the Nox was created the way it was in the name. There's a lot of, like, things in the lore which are just like, this is dumb as shit. But at the same time, that's my personal opinion. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's bad. Just my opinion. We will update them components and then the systems, but the airframes and craft like the A-10 are the same as they were first built, were all left the family before. Yeah. Sorry, I'm catching up a little bit, so. The F-16 is from 72, but it's still good plane due to the upgrades. Yeah, the F-15 Eagle is still being flown. The growth of the 20th century feels like a breakneck speed outlier. It kind of is. Measure sympathizers dropped ads right when the Astropub was criticizing the regime. Have there been wars between corporations in Star Citizen lore similar to what we've seen? No, we haven't seen corpo wars, no. So. But you say everything but the Javelin is not in service. We've had UE patrols using those ships. So which are in service then? My point being, for instance, the Vanguard is still in service, but it's being phased out. Same with the Gladius. It's being phased out. Most of them aren't actively being built for the Navy anymore. They're building replacement parts or they're keeping them maintained, but almost all of those systems are designed for the civilian market now. Almost all of the new ships, almost all the ships in the Navy we see today, that are basically new, built by either RSI or Anvil, and Crusader sometimes. The Xi'an Emperor was asked what he thought about the human civilization. His reply was, "I think it'd be a good idea." Ouch. The post-patch unrest is very strong today. PU Global is very depressing. It's just, that's how it is. Why is YouTube chat always way more salty than Twitch chat? I think it has to do with a lot of the culture. Like YouTube tends to favor more clickbait and negative emotions to try to generate a lot of that stuff. So people tend to have more of a negative opinion because they tend to be exposed to more negative information about Star Citizen. Whereas Twitch is built around more of like hype, whether good or bad. I'm not saying either of these things are good or bad, but that's why you tend to see a lot of differences between the YouTube comment or YouTube chat versus Twitch comment or Twitch chat, because it's not always the case either. So, that include classified and illegal projects by corporations. It's almost taken place. Yeah. Question: do we know of any planet systems locations that are dominated by one Earth culture? I think I already answered that one. Does the Liberator have much lore? No, it has 0 lore, as far as we know. Any chances that there's any more in-lore movies TV produced are IRL? Like stuff that's produced that's in lore, like shows that we then see in game? Possibly. They definitely mentioned some of that. What's in the background? This is Redder 2. Or not Redder 2. This is the University of Redder. Are there any planets that have gravity so strong that humans have difficulty exploring? I don't know off the top of my head, no. Thanks for answering my questions. I need to bounce. Thank you, man. Some of the older ships in Star Citizen should be mothballed. Some of them are. I'm finally catching up. Can you explain what you think there, Crampew? You said there's a bunch of nonsensical stuff that's happening for no good reason. I'd love to hear some examples of what you're pointing out. Then they phased the Perseus back in for the Vanduul battles. Yes, because Perseus is very old. It was actually entirely stopped being produced back in 200 years ago. But they're starting to update and bring it back in. So. We have UE patrols using ships that are those just in game placeholders because new ships haven't been implemented yet. In some cases, like you'd see something like a Vanguard, for instance, which is still being used by probably say like the advocacy, or even the military, but that's mostly because there are not really any replacement ships for it yet. Though I don't think that they're being used; they're still being built. Though the Vanguard is another example of a ship that's actually pretty new. It was built in the 28th century. So it was built in the early 28th century. So it's only 200 years old in comparison to like the Gladius. But someone who can fly a Mark 6 can't fly Mark 1. Do you think that'll apply for player character? Or will we have some inherent knowledge to fly any ship or drive any vehicle? I don't know. I mean, probably not. I mean, I don't think we're going to see a Mark 1 Gladius ever. Not be able to fly it. Remember, when lore and game tech are in conflict, the lore will be changed before the gameplay will. Yep. With swagger. I get what you're saying. I get the joke there, Citizen Ninja, but it's generally my experience. I'd also like to know if he's turned up anything on it. Sometimes I browse ArtStation working for a contract, but what are you talking about, Skippy? Oh, Bearcat. Yeah, Bearcat. I'd love to see a Bearcat. Are there any Elvis-like celebrities in the verse? There's a couple. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's one who actually disappeared. She was a folk singer It got really, really popular, and she was discovered singing an old 38 on Grimhex. She's from Grimhex. Not really from Grimhex. She's from, I think, Magnus originally, but she was in Grimhex playing a show when she was picked up by a producer, and then she kind of took off, and then she disappeared. It's a mystery. Hey, nerdy gentlemen. Does the USS Constitution still exist? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, the Vanguard is loved by the UE Marines, for sure. There's a freelancer ship, or sorry, Wing Commander ship, BF 105, 104, or F 104 Bearcat. It could be say that. What lore would you like to craft in Star Citizen given the opportunity? I'd love to take a crack at some of the very early lore, or some of the lore between, like the Mezzer lore. I think it would be pretty cool. Of course, I did an entire fan lore thing on the Redeemer, because that doesn't have any lore. But oh, Space Tomato's rating me. Hey, Space Tomato, happy birthday, buddy! I hear it's your birthday. It's a birthday. Paul, is this lore QA going to be a regular thing? At least once a quarter. So I'll do another one probably in March. I'll try to do them more frequently as well, especially if people want me to do them more often. Is there much more lore about the current Imperator? Yeah, she was a professor. I want to say at Redder University. She might have been at UPark. But she taught, I want to say biology. It could be physics. She taught a science and was kind of a political outsider. The way that elections work in the Star Citizen universe is very different. So. Hello, all the toes. Yes. So we're this is kind of lore. So if you have questions about the lore, feel free to ask them. We've already kind of tackled some of the bigger pet peeves that I think people have, that I have. The problems I have with people having problems. Question, is there already a bunch of lore for the Mirai? Yeah, a little bit. So it's brand new. Mirai is a new idea. It was originally called Division M, or MISC M is what it was called, and it was built for the Razor, and it's only recently become Mirai because of the sort of adaptation of a lot of that Jean tech. So. I'm finally caught up. Luminalia is still a bit of a weird holiday for me. I understand how it started, but is it celebrated across the verse? Did it replace more religious holiday? No, but it is. You can think of it as replacing Christmas in the corporate sense. The universe of Star Citizen, in terms of religion, the religion is a much more rarer concept among humans than it is today. Humanity has kind of left a lot of religious ideals in the past. That doesn't mean they don't exist. There are still, they've said that a lot of the religions that exist today still exist in the future, but a lot of them are different, very changed. And the ones that are kind of dogmatically the same have slowly started to die off. Because a lot of the identity, concept of how humans identify themselves became more about being human, especially after or like what planet they're from, especially after the discovery of alien species. So humans found more common ground as being human, because humans are racist, in the Star Citizen universe, they hate the fucking Xenos. And it's pretty fucking common. Like, it is very disturbingly common how much humans hate Xenos. And everywhere they look, they are backed up by their hatred, because the Vanduul they like absolutely butcher humanity. The Devaran started both of the Devaran wars. You know, the Xi'an have constantly meddled in human affairs, so. Is there any lore on other ship classes that they want other than what we have now? There's definitely battle cruisers and cruisers, and there is battleships. Now, battleships have mostly been phased out of the UE Navy. And there is the escort carrier, or light carrier, I should say, so. Yeah, so Luminalia, the way you understand Luminalia is spread because capitalism. Luminalia is all about capitalism. Because the Glow Festival is about buying gifts and giving them to your friends. So if someone will have a Luminalia event, and you will go to that Luminalia event, and they'll give food and shelter, and you're supposed to give them gifts as a thank you. So you get the gift of food, and they get the gift of whatever you brought for them. And it's very rude to not bring a gift. But don't worry, if you didn't bring a gift, especially with the Banu, they'll sell you one for free. they'll sell it for free. They'll sell you one for cheap. It's about exchange. It's a holiday about celebrating together the glory of capitalism. So yeah, of course, the capitalist, hyper-capitalistic society that is the United Earth, or United like human government, would fucking devour that shithole. Yes, the Ibrahim sphere, it comes from captured Vanduul tech. So, why is there such a fear of AI in the universe? Every single time AI has been utilized for some major event, it has screwed up to such a point that it has killed people. Sometimes in the thousands, possibly tens of thousands of deaths. The first major incident was called the Lemming Car Incident of Tokyo. And we don't know a lot about it, but we do know it was upwards of 20,000 people were dead or injured as a result. Basically, they try to integrate a general AI system into the traffic, into like the traffic monitoring of Tokyo. And yeah, it absolutely went bad. And then there's evidence that an AI was used to help speed up the process for the terraformation of Mars, and it's probably responsible for the snapback and destruction of the Martian atmosphere, which eventually caused the Mars tragedy. It's also believed that the AI that was in charge of the Artemis, Janus, was malfunctioned and killed everyone on the Artemis, though that's not necessarily true. But they stopped communicating, and everyone was asleep at that point, and the only person who was awake, I didn't think was awake, was Artemis. It was Janus, and Janus just stopped calling back to Earth about talking about stuff like that. So basically, every major, very public endeavor that had heavily utilized AI technology was an utter disaster. And even when they tried to do it in secret, the UEE tried to install, this is much later, this is like in the last 200 years, they tried to install AI into a squadron of bombers as a dead man switch failsafe system if the Xi'an attacked. So they were going to load these bombers up with antimatter warheads and load them up with an AI tech, which would then run a mission to go attack the Xi'an as a response to any aggression. So when they installed these and tried to do a trial run, they got triggered, and refused to take callback orders. And so the UE had to hunt them down and destroy them because they were on their mission, their failsafe mission to go destroy Jean. So they almost caused an interstellar incident. So effectively, the reason why AI is not trusted by the average person in humanity is because it's had very public failures, which has caused it to lose faith and trust for the average person. Does that mean that AI technology isn't developed in secret? Oh, hell no. Of course it's being developed. It's just in secret and can't be public because there's laws that forbid it from being public. So, are there any elements of cosmic horror? The Blue Man. So there's a system called Hades where we call it Hades because it's a graveyard. It's a species genocided themselves. An advanced spacefaring civilization genocided themselves before they discovered jump points. And one of the planets is called a half planet because it's literally ripped in half. Like shattered pieces. And we don't know what happened. We don't know how it happened. We just find the ruins of their civilization. We don't even find the decayed. Their bodies are long decayed. They don't exist anymore. There's evidence of orbital bombardments, nuclear warfare, antimatter warfare, insane levels of like radiation and other things that have been kind of lingering. It's disgusting. It's a wasteland. That all of that system is destroyed. It's a goldmine for archaeologists who've been trying to go through and piece together who the Hadesians were. But one of the problems is that Hades lies on a very major trade route from through the Empire, and as a shortcut. So people go through it all the time outside of the planets. They kind of stay away because it's kind of quarantined. But as a result, people who've been going through Hades have seen ghost ships. The Vara, for instance, is where that comes from. But also, they'll see a blue humanoid figure that'll just appear on their ships, like in the cargo bay or in their cockpits for like a fraction of a second and then disappear. Every species has seen it. There are reports of Jean, Banu, Tavaran, and humans seeing the Blue Man in Hades. No one knows what the fuck it is. No one's ever tried to touch it. Are there any real carriers? Yeah, the Bengal. That's perfect. I want to know. I want to work on a few songs for Illuminalia next year, and that to make make sure I capture the true essence of songs. You can think of it as like so the Banu are not maliciously capitalist. They're naively capitalist. Like profit isn't really a motive. It's like good work is the motive, but they want to do it sort of thing. So it's sort of this wholesome version of capitalism that fundamentally just doesn't really kind of process with the human mind because the Banu don't think like we do. So yeah, the Banu celebrate Luminalia because hey, why not? Hey, El DeFranco. Is there any conflicts between the gangs of Pyro and Stanton that we should be aware of? Yes. Many. There's the War of the Five Gangs. There's many battles for Ruin Station. Pretty much all of the gangs in Pyro hate each other. The only one that I think is more like neutral to everyone is Rough and Ready, because if you fuck with Rough and Ready, you don't get fuel anymore. But yeah, like the Fire Rats hate the Headhunters. The Headhunters hate the Fire Rats and hate Xenothreat. The Citizens of Pyro hate all of them. Like, yeah, they're all in conflict with one another. Might need a co-writer, wink, wink. I'm gonna help. Let me know. Forgot to bring your gift? No problem. Cash works too. Star Citizen AI gets really stable for a bit and then completely veers off the rails and kills everyone using it or around it. Yeah. How much does the UEE earn earns in the UEC? That's a question we don't know. Based off of my own research, it seems fairly low. Your average citizen doesn't own a ship, for instance, because your average citizen doesn't, or not citizen, your average civilian. Your average civilian may not ever leave their planet. And if they do, they'll use transportation. The only reason why you would have a personal ship is because you live on the frontier. And you need to use it for various reasons. Like, say, if you're in Bremen, you might need it because you're part of the Bremen Defense Force. But, yeah, generally speaking, most people don't have ships. And ships are very expensive for the average person. So if you look at the average cost of a ship, like, say, an Aurora, which is pretty pricey, but still affordable, which is in the verse like 300,000 credits or something like that, I can imagine your average amount of earning is below that. Question what interesting facts do you know about the spider colony? I mean, it was originally a UEE base that was supposed to be a listening post, and they've just kind of grown over time. It's a neutral zone. No one fights in Spider, and if you kill someone in Spider, your life is forfeit. So if you actively cause problems, everyone around you will turn on you. So like if you have beef with somebody and you're in Spider, and you decide to shoot it out in Spider, if you're the one who draws first, everyone will shoot you. So even if you kill the person you have beef with, you're dead because your life is forfeit. And there are zones of Spider which are actually policed and like they have like a government or something to that effect. So yeah. Why are the ads running for like 5 minutes? I forget what's going on with that. There you go. That should be a little better. Hey, Naj, thank you so much for that subscription. And then thank you, Infinite Sam, for that Prime sub. And that 13 or the 6 months of support from Toto Kennedy. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Love the Doctor Strangelove bit there. Yeah, it's very Doctor Strangelove. Is there lore about any of the animals? Yes. Is there any specific lore any kind of animal you'd want to know about? Let me know and I'll try to answer that, because there's a lot. Like, yes, there's a lot. Have humans ever fought the Xi'an in space battle? Possibly. There's definitely references to humans fighting the Xi'an in lore, but it's pretty early on in the writing process before a lot of that stuff was hammered out. My guess is that what humans have fought is not necessarily the Xi'an military, but the Xi'an outlaws. Because there are Xi'an outlaws who've operated in human space. So we probably fought Xi'an outlaws using Xi'an equipment by the human military. And as far as we can tell, the Hornet absolutely wipes the floor with a lot of the Xi'an fighter and bomber technology. It just styles on it, which is why the Santokiai, I can't say the Santokiai is around, because it's designed as a Hornet beater upper. Remember, Paul, abominable intelligences are tech heresy. Hey, Paul, thanks for the answer. Where my org is a role-playing org, I am responsible for writing and maintaining our org lore and keeping the canon. The more lore videos, the better. Awesome. They were loaded up on with real torps during a trial run. That sounds like a problem with the people, not the AI. That tends to be the case, is that humans, often the AI is put into situations where it has to make decisions, and its decision-making software or whatever it's being run on is flawed because humans fucked up on it. Like, the answer is that a lot of the problems with AI is human-based, but that doesn't matter because it's not a matter of what actually went wrong. It's not pointing the finger and blaming. It's the fact that the public just doesn't trust AI as a result. And, you know, politicians and other groups may have made hay with some of these problems and made them a lot worse than they actually were because AI threatens a lot of jobs and other like stability and other specific like corporations or industries. So, yeah. Corruption is definitely a thing in the Star Citizen universe. That's just Venefica. Remember on what system the blue humans and ghost ships are? Yeah, it's Hades. The Hades system. If this were the Alien franchise, someone would have stuck their entire head in it. It's true. Question to add on Citizen's question. How does human tech compare to Xi'an tech? Primitive. Humans are a lot less advanced than Xi'an, but we're catching up very quickly. And that scares the Xi'an pretty significantly. Can you imagine a group of Banu at a UT and versus A&M game? Oh, they would be lynched. Oh, I can imagine it. For those of you who don't know, Banu celebrate the spirit of the game rather than winner, like a specific team. So they'll vote. They'll cheer for both sides. They're just here to have fun. All right, guys. The Banu are just here to have fun. That's why I love them. They're just like what sports? Sports is a bunch of players leaving it all on the field for the love of the game. I like sports. Sports is all about skill and teamwork. It's like, God damn it, Banu, you will sell my fucking liver to the first chance you get, but you're so fucking adorable. It's hard to fucking get mad at you. Will Hades ever get released? Possibly. It's pretty close to a lot of the different systems that we have in game right now. I mean, Pyro has, I think, a jump point directly to Hades, so it's only 2 jumps away from Stanton. My lore is that I'm an Army veteran and an NCO, and I live in that ship and do VIP protection and groundwork. Awesome. Will CIG still do the finish Squadron 42 to get citizenship of Star Citizen? That's a good question. We don't know. There's a lot of what has happened with Squad 42 has changed. That was the idea when you could choose to either do Squadron 42 or play Star Citizen. And now Squadron 42 it's a completely separate game. I imagine it's one of the few things they should do in order to give some benefits to the average player who plays Squadron, since, you know, the F8's been taken out, but... question, is there a version of the Olympics still in game and lore? Yeah, it's called the Cargo Olympics. But, yeah, there's not really, like, the modern Olympics has not been referenced in the same way, so... Yeah, so I changed it over, so I don't know if it'll actually change. So that it's 3 minutes every 30 minutes. So... there's a race we know next to nothing about called the Cathok. All we know is that the Xi'an are fighting the Spirit Wars with them. Yes, that is true. So as players, we're very well off then. Yes, players are very well off compared to the average person. It'd be interesting if there was a biological hive mind race in the verse. Go gadget nids. Possibly. I'm always a little bit off-put by the stereotypical biological hive mind, which is consume biomass. I'd prefer a biological hive mind that's like peaceful. You know, think of something like ants. Like, yeah, they'll fight you if you get near them, but they're gonna domesticate animals and grow crops and shit. Is the Chimera, the Pegasus class, the current UE light carrier in service, or is that another light carrier that is currently serves us? We don't know about that either. There's actually a big question about that one, because as of before the recent Squadron 42 video, the thought was the Pegasus was still in game. Problem is that we haven't seen anything resembling a Pegasus, even in the leak videos. What we have seen, which resembles a carrier, is something that almost looks like a mini version of a Bengal. And so the current theory is that the Pegasus is now a lore ship. So it's a ship that did exist at one point in history and is now retired and has been replaced by this new light carrier. So that's the prevailing, at least my prevailing theory. And I think that's the most logical theory, just because we haven't seen a lot of the Pegasus since then. I'm a huge fan of lore and content. Thank you, Kovu. Thank you for watching. I must know, have we finally found the elusive Space Dairy Queen after these short few years, or does the search continue? I don't know if you'll remember that running joke. I don't, but I love it. I mean, Space Dairy Queen, I remember that joke from Team 4 Star's DBZ Abridged, but that sounds familiar. And speaking of the animals, the Santuk was designed after the apex predators, the Xian. Yeah, it's named after the creature that gives genuine fear. The ship's literal name is the ship that generates genuine fear or creates genuine fear. Love your content, man. My org Discord sets us to tell us every time you post new videos. Thank you, Reacher. Only got to look at self-driving ChatGPT, etc. now. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I mean, the real reason why AI is so bad, is seen so badly, in terms of the meta reason why, is because Chris Roberts doesn't like AI in games. He doesn't want automation in games. He wants players to be tactilely doing stuff. So, like, actually flying the ship and targeting stuff and that kind of thing. He didn't want AI just kind of doing stuff for humans. And due to the UE having the heritage of dictatorship, proper testing and caution would not be a concern. Thus, errors become more severe. Yeah. Also, good space code. AI. Yeah. Question: is there a lore for Gatak Raylan ships, big cargo ships? Not really. The Raylan seems to be the end result of Gatak's obsession with the whole series and trying to break into the human market. That's kind of the best I can say. Like, Gatak used to send Xi'an representatives to like every cargo event. So like every convention that dealt with cargo ships or ship designs. And the way it was described, I always imagined it was just like this Xi'an sitting in the corner with a notebook going, yes, very interesting. Yes, oh, yes, 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 okay. They just gathered a shit ton of data. And then, like, after years of doing this, they just show up with the Raylan and be like, we have human ship now. See, we have our own whole series, so... Yeah, the Xi'an use whole series ships. They love them. So, fear of AI laws limiting tech are being discussed in U.S. Congress as we speak. Yeah. What's my favorite lore about an animal? I love the Xiphopod, which is also known as the blind Oni crab. Because it is Star Citizen's version of like a seagull and a rat. It's an invasive species that takes over. Takes any place it goes to. It lives off of garbage, is very stupid, but lives in big flocks, and is propelled through the air by internal hydrogen bladders. And it looks like a nightmare that you had when you were a child. It comes from it comes from Space Australia, aka the Lear system. I think it's the same planet that the sandworm is on. So, The Myconids in BG3? I haven't played BG3, so. The band who understand the concept of sports ball. Biological hive mind like the Flood, but the Flood wants to consume. You know, that's you know. Have you read anything on the Parasite or Xenomorphs on Parasite or Xenomorphs in Star Citizen? There's not outside of there's a film series called Parasite, I think. That's kind of like Aliens-esque, which is where those like weird helmets come from, but that's about it. Elroy's does exist, yes. Question, is the UE still expanding or is reeling from Xi'an Cold War's incursions? The expansion era ended in 2530. UE is still expanding in fits and spurts, but not nearly to the same absolute massive scale that they were during the UNE and UPE era. Just because we're hemmed in on all sides by the Vanduul, the Xi'an, the Vanu, and at one point the Devarin, so... But Quantum is AI. So Quantum is the system that works in Star Citizen to function for the AI characters. When I say Chris Roberts hates AI, what I mean is he doesn't want players to just rely on game systems to function. He wants players to actually fix conduits, fly the ship, fire the guns. He doesn't like the idea of automation because he thinks it's lazy and he doesn't like that sort of design. That's what I've heard from Dave Haddock, who was the lead writer, which is why the AI thing exists. So the Quantum is great, but it's mostly designed to help the economy function, not help players like play the game. Why don't most current vehicles have an adequate headlights? I can't see shit at night. I don't know. It's not a lore reason. It's CIG's lighting issues. Statement. It's Chris Roberts. By God, I gave you an 80 crew ship and you're going to use 80 players to crew it. Then again, this is also Chris Roberts in 2012 compared to Chris Roberts in 2023. Have they released any more info on the Super Raelian featured in the Squad 42 trailer? They haven't, but it's a big cargo ship by the Xi'an. It's nice to talk about it because I've known about it for years. That whole scene looks very impressive, but what if you kept the fermentation? Where do you keep the fermentation jars? Yeah. EU at least just released a bunch of AI corralling laws that'll go into effect in 2025. Yeah. It's the Star Citizen mud crab. Yeah, Sandworm's Lear 3, but then there's also the cult that's Lear 2. Lear, I joke and call Lear Space Australia, but between the people who live in the Lear system and the creatures that live in the Lear system, everything's designed to kill you. Just don't fucking go to Lear. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the crotch spider and the crotch dog are Lear natives, because that tracks. Fart propulsion? Yeah. Well, that's helium. That's what is that? Methane. The way they propel themselves is by farting out hydrogen, and then they gather and create hydrogen in their own bladders. So what you have with the blind Oni crab is a series of tiny little Hindenburgs, and they're all over Hurston. Like, it's an infestation in Hurston. Like, they're everywhere on Hurston. So I can't wait for them to come in, because right now it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And soon you'll see herds of these very, like, nightmarish creatures slowly puddling along, consuming garbage on planets. Ooh. Is there any lore about Gulag planets? Yes, there's two. One is a former Gulag planet, which is Chiron. And then there is the one that's currently called Quarterdeck. It's like the big federal prison for all convicts who broke UE laws. So it's like Kleischer on steroids. It's an entire, I want to say planet, it might be a moon. It's an ice moon or ice planet. It's entirely encased in ice. And the prison is built underground. So if you try to escape, you freeze to death. And it's not habitable. The surface is not habitable. So there's also a maximum security prison orbiting quarterdeck, which is itself a station that also exists. So it was like the person that eats the fish's mouth and replace it. The spiders that eat your crotch and embed themselves there. Well, see, I have a feeling. Yeah, that's called. Those are called the. Oh God, what are they called? Roly-polies, pillbugs, isopods. Yeah, isopods. That actually, isopods. There's an alien version of an isopod that can breathe in, that can survive in vacuum. Y'all picked up rantadung in caves? That's the ranta. It's an isopod. We haven't seen it, but knowing CIG's love of horror, that thing is going to burrow itself inside of corpses to lay its eggs. Does humanity have a religion? Not a unifying religion. There is a philosophy called the Church of the Traveler, which exists. Again, I'm not going to go into too much because I'm actually releasing a video on that this week. But effectively, the religion is all about that life is about the journey, not the destination. And some of the most stringent adherents to the Church of the Traveler own nothing but own nothing but bare minimum essentials, and they can't pay for anything. Everything has to be given to them. So if they want to travel, someone has to give them a ride. If they want food, they have to be given it to them. They can't like purchase it themselves. Wait, the attack-looking ship in Squadron 42 is not the Raylan? No, it's a much bigger ship. Is there a known zoo in Star Citizen? I don't know. I haven't heard about any zoos. I'm sure they exist. One stray bullet, and it's a flock of grenades. Yeah. Eat your crotch and bed themselves in there. The mind control to encourage reproduction with other spider hosts, because that might be plus for many of us. So, Rura Penthine? I don't know what that is. And he's talking about isopods again. Hey, Cindy. Is there any ant aquatic animals in lore yet? Not that I know of, no. There's not really any aquatic animals other than the crab and the fish that we've seen. I imagine rantas are like the tardigrades from Star Trek Discovery. Possibly, yeah. Is there more on UE super weapon ship? No, there's nothing. We don't know how much about it because it's likely a big plot point in one of the Squadron games. The original author was way too grimdark to add that as pun. That doesn't sound like a kind of religion that would be good if adopted by society at a large scale. It's adopted by a lot of folks, but it's more of it's less of a, like, those are the stringent believers. The average person simply is encouraged to do things like share stories with people, share stories of their travels. It encourages generosity to give to people who are in need, sort of thing, and to celebrate people on their different journeys of life, and to participate in journeys wherever you can. So, move when you can, if you can. Try to move as much as possible. So that's general theory, a general idea about it. It's probably the most popular religion in humanity right now. So, and then again, the reason why it's popular is because it's not really a religion. They actively the philosophy actively encourages people to adopt other religions, be they Banu, Xi'an, or Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, like paganism, doesn't matter, like whatever religion, because the idea is that they're not a religion. They don't believe in a higher power. They're just a philosophy. The Klingon ice prison? I don't remember that. Well, the turtles in game have could be argued as semi-aquatic. That's true. They're just box turtles. So we're expecting to see the Super Raylan is flyable once Squadron 42 releases. I doubt it, because the quote-unquote Super Raylan, the large cargo ship that we see in the trailer, is likely not flyable. It's likely more just a set, so... I've always wanted to know who Riker is from the Riker Memorial Spaceport. No, it's named after a fan. A German fan, I believe. And they've actively said, yeah, they named it after a German fan who passed away before Riker was built. So, yes, the Church of the Traveler does allow for working in exchange for travel, in exchange for passage. In fact, the big holiday for the Church of the Traveler is known as Traveler's Day, which is January 1st. So this is where I announce I'm going to be doing a live stream on January 1st for probably for charity, for doing a Traveler's Day celebration. I tried to do it one year and it didn't really work out. I'll make more details as we go through, but the idea is I'm trying to grab as many people as possible on the 1st, and we're just going to make a journey from one place to another, as because that's what you do for Traveler's Day. So we'll find 2 points on a planet or moon, and then we'll have people walk or drive or not fly, but just make a journey. So. Question: is there a UEE military draft? No, actually, it's entirely volunteer. The way that they encourage people to join the military is similar to what we have in the United States. Basically, the military is made up of poor kids, of the absolute destitute of the empire, and then the people who are expected to serve as part of so they can get their citizenship, so they can be a Hurston and take over the company, or inherit land or titles from their families, that sort of thing. So, but a lot of the lore we have of UE military is poor kids trying to get out of the poor areas, and so they join the Navy. Some of them join because of revenge, because of things like the Vandal and stuff like that. But no, it's entirely volunteer. And the advantage is that you get citizenship if you join up. So that's the real big kind of push for it. Are there other well-known civilian-based organizations in the verse? I know we have gangs which are like civilian orgs, but are there large unions around Mighty and Salvage? Yes, there's the UWH. Oh, it's UWH. Is UW. I'm trying to remember it. It's like United Mining Union, I think. UMU. Not. I think if CIG wants to do a nice big memorial, they did plan on having doing the Martian Memorial, which is a memorial to the fallen, and has etched in all the names of the fallen, of those who died during the Martian tragedy, and we only know a handful of them. So that would be a great place to put the names of fallen citizens, fallen backers who've passed on. Be a nice little nod. So, yes, there's the UE Army and the UE Marines. Those are the Army, Navy, and Marines are the three branches of the UE. Isn't it only to become a Star Citizen to join the Navy? Not actually. No, you can actually do, as long as you do great work for the Empire that's recognized by the Citizen Board. which is a board of government officials whose job is to kind of judge to see if people are worthy of becoming citizens. As long as you do something good for the Empire, they can give you citizenship. But are there others like gangs? Yes, I've looked it up. But there are mining unions. There's the Rust Society, which is a group of travelers and scavengers. It's kind of like a trade union. It's more like an apprenticeship or like a guild. It's like a trade guild. The idea being older members of the Rust Society take on younger members of the Rust Society, and then they train them and teach them how to be traders and scavengers, or salvagers. And then when they get older, they pass down that knowledge and so forth, and they work together to help collectivize bargaining and rates and stuff like that. So they're kind of like a co-op meets an old guild. And there's lots of other. There's the trade union. There's the Bounty Hunters Guild. There's this kind of stuff. Flat Cats. Yeah, there's a lot of. There's Angeli's Angels, which is a organization whose sole job is to help orphans in Angeli. There's the Empire's Mercy or something like that, which is another kind of like helping the poor out. There's a lot of organizations. There's the United UWH, I think. UWC, the United Wayfarers Club, which is like Space AAA. It's a like a spaceship enthusiast group where people who own spaceships can get a membership, and they'll help you out with like roadside assistance or towing your ship. So they have like Vulcans and not vultures, but Vulcans and SRVs. So should you upgrade your cutter to the Cutter Rambler? I would say yes, but in general, a lot of people say no because you lose a lot of that cargo space. The thing that makes the Cutter unique as a starter ship is you can put like an STV or a small vehicle in the back of it, but you can't do that with the Rambler. The only thing you get is extended range and better living space. So personally, it's what I would choose for as a starter ship because you still get 2 SEU of cargo, but I know other people don't. So. What is the current census of the UE, actual citizens as living beings? It's hard to tell. The CIG has never published any of those kind of numbers, but based off of the kind of vague estimates they've thrown at, it's for some of these ideas. Like, for instance, Earth is likely less populated in the Star Citizen universe than it is now. So probably anywhere between 4 and 6 billion people living on Earth. But Terra is much larger and has a much larger population. And while Terra is pretty big, you have places like Area 18, but ArcCorp, which probably has equally billions of people living on it, versus places like Hurston, which probably has hundreds of millions, and so on. So like the if we take say just like an average of like 1 billion people living in a system in UEE systems, scattered throughout different clusters, there are 34 systems, so it would be like 32 to 34 billion people in the UEE. That's back of the napkin, absolute like guesstimate based off of what some vague things they've said. Apparently there's been some issues with the servers currently, Bluefish, so just be wary of that. Is there a map of the details where the UE systems are located in the galaxy? Yes, if you go to the website and you go to, if you go to Roberts Space Industries, in fact, let me show y'all exactly where. This is a perfect time to do this. So if you go here to the front, so I'm gonna make it kind of smaller because you probably see it a little bit smaller. You go here to the front. You go to apps. You can go to Galactopedia or Star Map. You can go to Star Map. This is going to lag a little bit just because of the browser I'm in. I don't know. Apparently it's been pretty bad. I haven't played the game in a couple days, so. It actually, the performance is a lot better on it. In your typical. This browser is just bad for me. So you can just kind of turn off the factions. So there's all of the UE systems. All of the blue is UE systems. And Stanton is over here. Yeah, doesn't go there. You also have ! Star Map if you're on Twitch, so. I was told it could fit a mule in the cutter. The original cutter, yes. But not in the cutter Rambler. Hey, Paul. So AI blades are just general AI, and it's true AI that's been outlawed? Yes. So basically, anything that is like what would be considered an expert system, because technically the IFCS system in ships is an AI. It's just an expert system AI, the fly-by-wire system. So yeah, those work in a similar way. Like they're technically AI, but they're not general AI, and that's kind of the maximum amount of AI you can do. You can build an AI that's very, very good at one thing, and that's it. Sure, but the systems themselves likely have much more. Yeah, I mean, some of the systems that are on the fringes of the UE probably have less, but those that are in the central core probably have multiple billions. Like, Sol as a total probably has 10 billion people living in it. That's just, again, an average guess, because Mars is, I think maybe, even if it's as inhabited as Earth, and let's just say Earth is 4 billion, that means you have about 8 billion people between Earth and Mars. And then you have the entire rest of the system that exists. So, 2 billion on like Ganymede and Europa and those other places, that tracks. Finally caught up. By the way, I wish you doing the show for us EU time zone folks. No problem. Yeah, that's the idea, is to kind of do these sorts of things, so. 2 billion Beltalota, yeah. I don't mainly either, but it's fun to have a fly around. Okay, yeah. And now I've finally caught up with everyone, so if you have questions, feel free to ask them. Oh, excuse me. Maybe I just missed it. Were you ever planning on finishing the lore series? Yes. So the process of doing that lore series takes an incredible amount of time and effort for research, and my editor, who I have an editor specifically for it. And while I am finishing part, I've been finishing part 4 for a couple months now. Oh, in terms of writing and research. Whew, I get some drink here. While I'm finishing that up, my editor doesn't have time this December to work on it. And it usually takes him about 2 weeks to do one of those because they're about 40 minutes long. So I likely will finish it and possibly another one sometime in January in terms of writing. But we'll have part 4 will be in the first half of next year, and then part 5 will be in the shortly after that. Question: from a perfectly lore point of view, when night vision? From a perfectly lore point of view, it already exists. You're just too poor to afford one. Garge. Get rich, bitch. Sorry. So the problem is that like what I've been able to, like, with the first 3 episodes, has been getting smaller and smaller in time zone. The next episode 4, covers about 60 years. And then there's going to be an entire episode that's just the Tavaran War. And because that's going to take 40 minutes. And then after that, which is only 4 years. And then after that, it's the rise of the Mezzers, which is probably only a couple of years. And then after that, it's the kind of the lead up to the Tavaran War, to Second Tavaran War, new systems, new people, new events. Like I'm going to go as in detail as possible, and connecting all these together. And that's probably another episode or 2. So for the next like 7 episodes, is going to be the 26th century is the next 7 episodes. Whereas the first 3 episodes took us from the 21st century to the 25th century for like 400 years in 3 episodes. And then we're going to do like 6 or 7 episodes in just 1 century. And we're in the 2900s. So the closer we get to the present, the more dense the lore becomes. Do you think they'll add like 20 or 30 barren systems with minimal lore and content just with mining and resource gathering purposes? It seems unrealistic for them to make 100 systems with deep content. The majority of the systems in the Star Citizen universe are fairly basic. There's a handful that are, like Stanton alone is incredibly complicated in terms of the multiple landing zones and such. There's going to be, I think every system is going to have some level of handcrafted factions, but there's a lot of them that are just going to be pretty empty. I can think of 5 off the top of my head. You've got Nexus, which has some factions, but it's only like 2 livable planets, but it's mostly a war zone. Then there's Tohill, which only has 1 livable planet, which is interesting and unique, but it's got floating like gardens, but that's it. It's mostly made up of smugglers because it's on the edge of UEE space, and it's at a border between the UEE and the Xi'an Empire. So it's like where a lot of outlaws hang out, like doing trade deals and such. And then there's Nyx, which has no habitable planets in it. And it's just, you'll have some faction warfare stuff, but nothing that we already have. But then there's, what is that called? Tamsa, which is just a black hole. There's the Min system, which is just it has no sun. It's just a gas giant with moons. There's the Banshee system, which is a pulsar. The cool thing about it is it's got an underground landing zone because it's too dangerous to live on above ground. So the actual landing ground is like you actually go underground and live inside the rock is where it is. But it's a pulsar. So like a lot of the systems are unique because they have a unique aspect to them, but that's about it. Like they're mostly hazardous, or just some flavor of what we already have that just on its own. So yeah, like the majority of the systems in Star Citizen, I would say out of the 100 systems, probably 50 or 60 of them are something that are fairly basic. Do I have any videos about medical history? Yes, I actually. Well, it's a podcast, but I sat down with Tree 0311 and did a full breakdown of the medical history of how medical functions. But I am going to be doing another one, kind of more concise version of that. Ellis is not empty. Ellis is completely filled with stuff. It's a very, very diverse place. It's very, like, Ellis, Terra, Stanton, Seoul, Croshaw, Redder. These are places that are, like, super hard. It will be a lot complicated to do. And, like, maybe Ferris, or Ferron, Keel. I'm trying to think. These are the systems that will take them a little bit of wild time. Castra, kind of. There's another system that I'm blanking on that's kind of got a former UE military base on it. It's where IAE is supposed to take place. Hadrian, yeah. I mean, Hadrian's pretty empty, actually. Like I would say, like, Castra and Hadrian are examples of systems which are more... They have more things than you realize, but they're unique enough that they probably will require CIG to develop some new tech. So it'll take them longer. It'll take them longer than the easy ones, but it'll definitely be simpler. And the thing to remember about a lot of that sort of thing when it comes to systems is that most of the systems will be used copy-paste technology from what we already use from other stuff. The things that take a long time aren't necessarily the planets and the moons and the biomes and such. The things that take CIG a long time right now is more the factions and the technology that underlie a lot of that stuff. So, like, Pyro isn't taking a long time because they don't know how to make systems. Pyro's taking a long time because they have to do server meshing. So when a lot of those technologies are put into place, systems should be easier to make. Do you think we'll ever get alien capitals? Maybe. What ship do you think kind of sucks but lore is cool and you like it anyways just for that? The Gladiator. Gladiator sucks ass, but it just got the coolest lore. Any gun lore? Yes. Which manufacturer is your favorite? I'll tell you the lore behind it. Yeah, but the Gladiator is so like, in terms of gameplay, it's just not that fun. It gets outclassed by every other ship around it. I'd love to see Castle Goss 2, as it's meant to be in a resort planet and want to run Genesis Starliner tours. Yeah, Castle, I forgot about that. Yeah, Goss. There's also, like, Nemo, like I mentioned before, which is, you know, eh. And then there's another one, Nemo and Banshee are both connected to it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a dust ball world, so. But yeah, David, about medical history, I'm definitely planning on doing a video on medical history just because it's fascinating. There's a lot of cool stuff. I want to try to get it done before CIG releases the new character creator, because the character creator itself is part of that system. It's called Project Calliope. Hey, Tyken. Yes. Calliope. Project Calliope. You paused this video, and you went down to the comments, and you said, Paul, it's pronounced Calliope, not Calliope. And I went, yes, because I knew you were going to come down to the comments and say it was Calliope, not Calliope, because if I said it wrong, you'll comment. And if you comment, the algorithm picks it up and says this person is commenting on this video, so it must be very important. And especially if you like the video and commented, then they say, hey, this must be good. Get algorithm donned. Sorry. I don't always do that. I don't always intentionally mispronounce things. Sometimes I do mispronounce things. I just forget to catch it. But like, sometimes I'll get to the point where it's like, I could re-record this and like fix this problem here. And then I go, wait, is it that vital to the information that I pronounced it properly? If the answer is no, then I'm like, yeah, someone will comment on it. Thank you, Liquid. Now, for sure, I will continue to say Mezer and Aegis because, God damn it, and Orison because that's how you pronounce those things. So it's Calliope, not Calliope? Yes. No, I know you pronounce it Messer, but I'm going to call it Mezer because it's funnier. It's cooler that way. I know what you're talking about, Nerdy. I know what you're talking about. What's my favorite firearm lore-wise? It's a toss-up. I love Kastak. The Kastak arms weapons, but I also like the lore behind Gemini. Like, a lot of the individual weapons don't have a lot of lore behind them in terms of who made them and why they're made, but the gun manufacturers themselves do, and a lot of it is implied that we've got a bunch of John Moses Brownings in the verse, where, like, one person or a group of people produced a lot of these weapons themselves, rather than, for specific reasons, rather than, for specific contracts, so... Calliopeia. I pronounced it. It's Jian, Shan. There's a bunch of different ways you can pronounce it. Mez with the purists. I also think with enough linguistic drift, I think Mezer it could be a legitimate way that you pronounce Messer in 900 years. And that's one of those circular logics because you can't correct me otherwise. It's a what is it called? Like that where you can't like Sean, and Jean. Do you think other alien species, Jean, Banu, know about other alien civilization species but don't tell mankind about them? Banu did it. They did it with the Xian. They knew about the Xian before we did. They didn't fucking tell us. They probably knew about the Vandul before they told us too, because fucking Banu. Question, what are the best, most advanced cities in the UEE? Area 18 is one of the most advanced cities in the UEE, or like ArcCorp in general. Terra Prime, I want to say. Yes, Prime. Prime is the capital city of Terra. It's probably the most advanced city, next to something like New Babbage, almost certainly. And then probably Saisei. Orson would definitely be there as well. Orison. Well, the problem is the problem with Orison is they actually pronounce it in game, so we actually know with an audio line. So we actually know how they pronounce it, and you all know how they pronounce it because you've heard that ad. You've heard that ad 1,000 times. I hear that ad in my dreams. Come, visit Orison, the city in the clouds. Are you ready to turn your life from the ordinary to the extraordinary? Me and the Banu are homies, but sometimes the Banu make me go, God damn it. I can't stay mad at them because they're just little scamps. They're little scamps that will steal my liver in 5 seconds if they had a chance to. Glacier? I don't know what Kender are, but I assume so. So, like, the Banu are a species that have this... If you look at them from a human perspective, they seem very naive, but they also seem very nefarious at the same time. The Banu culture doesn't have the same sort of mores as human culture. They don't have the same kind of, like, tropes, and there's a lot of, like, disconnect. They love to trade because uniqueness and skill are valued. So if there's something that's very unique or something that's requires a lot of skill to make, it has a lot of value to the Banu. But individual Banu might have different values for what those. Like there are Banu explorers and stuff like that like to do those sorts of things. So like there's definitely passion and drive. But Banu society is organized in Sulis, and effectively a Suli is a family and a business at the same time. And if you're part of that Suli, you are family. Like, you are ride or die. Like, they will stab a motherfucker for you if they have to, because you're family. They may not like you, but you are like a family member. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you have a family member that you tolerate or maybe even utterly despise, but they're your family, you know, it's that kind of thing. And that's how their society is built, on a series of these Sulis together. So, and the thing about the Sulis is the Sulis, everyone's trying to get the best workers, the best deals for their Sulis. And the way that you work in a Suli is you are sold to a Suli. You make a contract and you have to work for a certain number of years or until you pay off the debt that you have for that thing. So you can like get money for your labor, but you basically like sell yourself and they give you that money sometimes up front. But then they take care of you like family for the rest of your time with them until you've paid back that money or that contract. So like, will a Banu sell you into slavery? Yes. If they can make money off of it and you are in a bad position, they will 100% take advantage of you because it'll help them out. And it gives them an advantage so that they can start their own Suli or embolden their own Sulis so they can get that advantage to help them go further. But they also know that the second you are part of that Suli, you're family. Humans have been sold into Banu Sulis before as children, and they leave the Sulis like family. It's just a weird dynamic. Like, what we would see as like kidnapping and slavery, they see as just how things work. And there's no, like, love lost between them. So, oh yeah, no, slavery is definitely what they do. They definitely actively participate in slavery, but it's sort of a unique, kind of weird slavery. It's not really slavery in so much as, like, indentured servitude. You're not property. But you are contracted. Is there any other known ship by Kruger? No, not yet. Do you know anything about the spacecraft called the Osprey from the Vanduul? I do. They actually recently released a bunch of lore in it. It's a fighter. The fighter it was the first ship that that Anvil ever produced for the UE military, and a prototype was built for the military in the late 29th century. It was like 2770s or 2780s, right before the fall of the Mezzers. And they actually, the Mezzers had actually purchased the Osprey and used it as a fighter. We don't know what type of fighter. We don't know if it's light fighter, medium fighter, heavy fighter. It was just a fighter. So. Didn't catch any things. Kleischer? Oh, it's Klesher, isn't it? It is Klesher. Huh. Would you say the Banu are good, bad, or just completely situational? They don't really have that concept of good and bad. I mean, they have, like, what you should and shouldn't do based off of, like, don't piss off the Suli and stop fucking with things you shouldn't fuck with. Like, for instance, if you're embezzling money, aka Jerry, from your Suli so you can get out earlier, that's bad. But if you get away with it, you get away with it, you know? Like, I don't think if they found out after the fact, they might go after Jerry, but you know, they're not really disconnected because they do have to work together. So there's definitely, like, Sulis work in harmony to complete something, but they're always jockeying for a better position. So Sulis are always looking to get better positioning where they are. So there's the knowledge of, hey, as a society, we need to function. We need to do these things, because if we fuck up, if like I'm a Suli, the Esso Suli of a Suli, and I backstab somebody who I have to work with, so I could get a temporary advantage, I could get absolutely screwed by the rest of the Sulis who have to work in that system. You know, say I'm making clothes and I backstab the Suli that makes buttons. Well, the cloth Suli will then not work with me because they don't want to get backstabbed. The yarn Suli won't work with me because they don't want to get backstabbed. And my distributor Suli, the people who would actually sell my clothes, they ain't going to work with me either because they might get backstabbed. So I'm screwed. So it's kind of a mutually assured destruction sort of situation. Didn't they retcon that? Retcon what? Slavery? No. No, they didn't. They just changed it from being openly slavery to more indentured servitude. So why was Jerry not able to go back to his family? Jerry didn't really have a family. I mean, he did go back. But the reason why he ran away from his Suli was because he was embezzling money from his Suli. He was stealing from them. So he could leave the Suli, he could buy himself out of the Suli, and then use that money to go, whatever money is left over, to go join a exploration Suli. Other than that, they bring some form of sexual intercourse in the PU. I want to go Captain Kirk on an alien species across the galaxy. Sadly, that's not going to happen. Banu have industrial ships? Possibly. We just don't, we haven't seen them, like, or heard of them. Don't piss off the families, the Banu or Mafia, yeah. Any theories about the Kurthok being the new version of the Kinthank from the Wing Commander Prophecy games, the Great Darkness, Nephilim Insects Race Swarm? Possibly. I hadn't heard about that before, so. Paul, you should do a lore video on individual famous pilots, past president, or not necessarily military. I love character lore. I could take a look at some of them, especially for shorter videos. So if the Ospreys were made for the Mezzers, why did Anvil get away easily after the fall of the Mezzers, unlike the companies like Aegis? Because they were a pretty new company, and so like Aegis was put under the hot seat because not only did they make ships for the Mezzers, but they made ships which were expressly designed as war crimes. Like, they expressly helped continue to design and make the Retaliator better, and the Retaliator was knowingly by Aegis used to target civilian targets who the Mezzers just didn't like. And Aegis was like not just working with the Mezzers, but like best friends with the Mezzers, like go to their wild parties and get on the Christmas list sort of thing. So whereas like Anvil just started. Origin similar. Like Origin built engines for Aegis and for RSI, but they just built engines. Still, they got cross-examined too. Effectively, every company that had anything to even close to do with the Mezzers got actively scrutinized by the new UEE after the fall, including RSI. But they were spared because of actions they had taken or because, you know, of their distance from the Mezzers. Is a Suli like an armada, or can Suli be single merchantman ship filled with members? Or do Sulis have home bases, planets, and permanent places they stay at? Yes. A Suli is... Two Banu can be a Suli. A Banu Suli can be two individual Banu, or it could be a billion Banu. A Suli is simply a group of people dedicated to a task. A group of Banu that is dedicated to doing a task. You've got to remember, because Banu don't have gender, nor do they have biological sex. They are asexual. Not asexual. They reproduce via, like, just decision. So, like, two Banu will get together, and they'll be like, all right, well, we want to form a reproductive Suli. So they'll form a reproductive Suli. I don't know if the concept of love or lust exists in Banu society. I don't think it does. So, like, most Banu sex would be purely business. Two Banu get together so that they could create a Suli for the purpose of making children. And then one Banu would choose if they would carry the child to term, and then they would do the act. And then after that, when the child is born, the child is then sold to a rearing Suli. And the rearing Suli then takes care of the child and raises them up and teaches them what they need to. And then they're sold to a kind of like a schooling Suli, where they get they go to school and they learn a little bit about what to do, and they figure out what they're really good at. And once they figure out what they're good at, that schooling Suli will then send them to their first actual Suli, like a professional Suli. And then they work in that Suli until they've paid off their debt, because, of course, they're purchased from the different Sulis. Once they paid off their debt, they're free to do what they want. How long have the Mezzers been out of power by 2953? The anti-Mezzer revolution took place in 2792. So a little over 140 years. No, generally speaking, a Banu Suli requires multiple Banu. I don't think you can have a single Banu be a Suli on its own. And I was seeing an ad from the advertising Suli. It's true. It doesn't have to be a Banu. In fact, we've got a couple of lore characters. Maz is one of those characters who's a Banu. He's a hacker. He's from a hacker Suli, from like a data Suli, where he worked as a hacker. And when the Suli dissolved because the previous Esso Suli died, a new Esso Suli took over and kind of reformed the Suli, and he left that Suli and eventually met up with Alex Dugan, who was the owner of the Belligerent Duck. And so Maz then joined Alex, as Alex is the Esso Suli of Maz's Suli. So, like, the Belligerent Duck is his Suli. Still does the job that he was trained to do as a Banu. And he just listens to Alex. So, have any humans joined Banus joined a Suli willingly? Probably. It's almost certainly happened at one point. Humans are pretty valued by some Sulis because of their exoticness. So. Luminali Calendar Mug says it on the menu text. Ichenga uf zu Banu. I cannot speak Banu. Translation by Gunapalm. It says I can't speak Banu. That's great. I love it. Any specific reason why the UEE kept the name and titles of the Empire, even though it's become a democratic republic after the revolution? Has it, though? Has it? That's my theory. That's kind of... So there was an actual democratic referendum that was held after the fall of the Measures, which was called the Governance Modernization Act. And part of this referendum was a package of how to change the UEE from what it used to be to a more democratic or a representative republic sort of mindset. And we don't know the details, but it's highly implied that either a weakening or doing away with the citizenship system. And one of them that we do know was it was going to move the capital to Terra and would rename the government to the Democratic Stellar Union. It's likely it would reorganized representation a little bit more, so it was more fair across each of the different places, possibly population-based as well. It was a pretty big thing. The problem was that this entirely pissed off the powers that be that survived the revolution by backing the rebels. So these, financial and military leaders felt that they were being threatened by this change. And so they went about by doing what financial and military leaders do when they're threatened by change, and actively opposed it through subversive means. And did so by helping to sponsor advertisements to write your senator to tell him not to do this. And they managed to convince a lot of people that by doing this change, it would send the empire into a recession, if not a depression. It would break the economy. And that scared the shit out of the average person who didn't want to lose their job. So it was very close, but the Governor's Modernization Act was killed. So it was entirely brought down. There are some slight changes that were made, but pretty much the only slight changes was who had power, and they added some more checks and balances to the mix. But other than that, it's the same system that Messer created, Ivar Messer created back in, the 26th century. So it really hasn't changed all that much. What do you mean that's stupid? That's exactly how revolutions work, my dude. They forgot about Trey. Effectively, what we had with the anti-Messer revolution wasn't an actual revolution. It was the Messers were bad for business, and they were making a lot of noise. And so when the winds of change started blowing in a direction where the actual people were starting to rise up against the Messers, many people decided to switch sides at a key point, and thus allow for the rebels to win. But once the rebels had won, all of those people in power simply retained power. The UEE is not a good government. It is very corrupt and is very problematic. I honestly, I applaud the writing for of the anti-Mez revolution, because it is much more akin to actual revolutions than what we think of as revolution. Arbob puts it a good way. I wouldn't be surprised if it was based off of the French Revolution or the Russian revolutions, which had noble ideas of democracy and freedom, and both devolved into anarchy, civil war, and eventually monarchies or dictatorships in one way or another. Yeah. So the Nero, the way to explain this is the UEE, everything you hear in terms of like the advertisements, all of that is from the perspective of someone living in the UEE, probably a citizen of the UEE. So the highest positions that you can possibly attain in that society. But it is a stratified society. Citizens have a lot more power because they get to vote. And civilians only get to vote for their local elections. Citizens can hold power in the UEE. They have easier time doing business across different star systems. And the worst part is you could serve in the military and not get citizenship. Even though it's generally accepted you get citizenship, you still have to prove that you did a service to the Empire that's worthy of citizenship. There's people who served in the Empire who have not gotten citizenship. Service does not guarantee citizenship in the UEE. The UEE is a dystopian corporatocracy that's masked with a layer of modernization. Like there's an entire group of people who actively still resist the UEE, and they're going to be the next system after Pyro. Nyx, the People's Alliance of Levski, is a organization, a government, which was created specifically as an opposition government to the UEE when the Messers were around. They still exist. Why do you think they still exist if that revolution was successful? Because they don't believe the revolution was actually real. No updates to the Duster lore yet. I'd love to see more of that, though, because now that they're in the game. For those of you who don't know, I have a theory that the Dusters are the original settlers of Stanton that were brutally removed from their land by the UEE military. But what? But mobile infantry may be on the man today. Yeah, I mean, there's a I did a video on the Vulture which kind of talks a little bit about the salvage lore. You're talking about the beams themselves. There's specific micro. There's a problem with technology in the 29th century, like minimizing like those cutting beams was very difficult, and through independent work by Drake and Misk, they were able to create smaller versions of like salvage and mining beams, mining lasers. But they had the kind of like micro, like they scale them down. It took a lot of effort and research and development. But you know, their descendants, yeah, whatever. Ancestors, descendants, my brain gets screwed up a lot of stuff. Question: are there any mentions of the stories of QT travel beyond a system or across multiple star systems? Yes, but it's not viable. The current speed of quantum travel is 20% the speed of light. So if you can travel 20% the speed of light, at least in lore, even most systems are, you know, several light years across away from each other. So, you know, even if two star systems were, let's say, a light year apart from one another, not probable, but, you know, let's just say there is, it would still take what? Several years, probably close to a decade, to quantum travel from that one to the next. Can you link that to me, Darj? Because 0.2c is still on the most updated version of the quantum travel. And I can prove it. This was updated... Hold on. Star Citizen News. So this was just updated as of... Find it here. They did a bunch more updates too. Yeah, they did a ton of updates. Wow. They were updating stuff while I was streaming last night. Here it is. The Galactopedia got a bunch of updates, but here we go. As of 12/13 at 8:36 p.m. Central Time, this was the lore. A quantum drive is a type of engine that generates a Chan-Eisen field, enabling spacecraft to travel approximately 20% the speed of light. Literally the first sentence of the official lore on there, updated as of 2 days ago. I know that in game right now, they go far above 1C even. So I'm gonna go off of the lore that's written in the Galactopedia by the developers that was updated as of 2 days ago. Uh, 20% of the speed of light is 0.2c. Yeah, it'd be 5 years, you're right, I'm in Guardian. What's the story of the current holiday? It's an alien holiday. It's a Banu holiday called Tifiki Afanga, aka the Glow Festival. It's an unknown origin, but it's where the Banu will light these lamps, these specific lamps. And when they light these lamps, they'll hang them where they'll stop and they'll hang them in a place, which is an invitation for other people to join them. And they show up to hang out. The Banu who lit the lamps will then give them the people who came in food and presents, and in response, in return, the person who is getting the food is supposed to give presents back to their guests. But it's a time when they claim we're all one Suli. So the idea that everyone is one family. And Luminalia lasts for as long as the that lamp is lit. And it lasts for 3 days, I think, in lore. So. Yeah, no travel faster than light. And that's the thing, is like, even in the most recent lore makers update, they did a question about traveling faster than light, and they even said there's no travel faster than light, but there are drives in game that go faster than 1C. They go faster than the speed of light. So I would say I'm going to take the lore makers who consistently have said the same thing for years over a work in progress game. Yeah, there is mention of FTL attempts, but it's always ended in failure. It doesn't function. No species has ever figured that out. Yes, the QT tech is based off of the Alcubierre drive. That was the inspiration. So. There's no ship. There's nothing that goes faster than 1C. That's pretty fucking fast, though. It's an Alcubierre drive. It's a warp drive, Unknown Guardian, so it doesn't actually speed you up past that speed. It's just your relative motion is. It's literally just pulling two parts of space together, and you're traveling across it. So it's the causal. Time dilation doesn't matter because it circumvents time dilation. Yeah, and time is sped up. You can actually see this time in game. The current in-game time is sped up faster than our current time. It's like by a lot. So. So that's the case. Then your ship is technically not moving during the QT, depending on the frame of reference. Yes. And faster than light travel isn't actually, you're not actually traveling faster than light in a jump point, you're traveling through a wormhole between 2 points of space. That's intersected through a dimension called interspace, which is this, it's kind of warp-esque, subspace-esque barrier, that like kind of dimension that exists outside of our own, but is like smaller than our own. So the distance between 2 points in interspace is smaller than the two, from one, you go into interspace through a jump point and you exit through another part. That distance is, light years across, but in your time, it's 5 minutes. So it's the warp. Maybe there's a specific question, but are there any differences between Alcubierre drive and a quantum drive in lore? Probably. We don't know enough about the quantum drive to make it really to make it stand out. Meat comes from most of the meat comes from what's known as the Kazi grazer, which is a type of animal that is native to Terra in the continent of Quasi. Quasi is also the home of the two brothers who formed Asperia. So, but it's an animal that CIG has dubbed the space cow. It looks kind of like a very leathery cow, but instead of udders, it has eggs. It has clutches of eggs for where its udder would be. So. They're just not added to the game yet because it's an alpha. If it's basically a warp drive, then QT effect, even the new one that's coming, couldn't look that way if there's anything based off of slightest hint of real-world physics. Star Citizen is one of those, again, they're trying to base everything in as real as they can get, but they're gonna make things look cool or make them look different. So, yeah. It's a video game. CIG is going to always kind of trend on the rule of cool over slavishly being like realistic. Yeah, they're confining themselves to their systems. It makes sense in lore. Even Chris Roberts calls Quantanium Handwavium. It's just based off of the Alcubierre drive. We don't have a means of supplying enough power for the drive, but I'm sure there are other limitations. Unknown Guardian's just talking about how the effect wouldn't look like that, and that's more of a artist interpretation sort of situation. Where, like, CIG wants to make it look cool and wants to make it look like you're traveling. And they're basing it off of aesthetics from, like, Star Trek or from Star Wars, stuff like that. You can obviously see, or even, like, I think even, like not Babylon, but, like, Battlestar Galactica is similar, had similar kind of, and Stargate had similar kind of warp effects. So... yeah. I don't necessarily think Star Citizen's filled with plot holes. Can you tell me what plot holes exist, Hefforson? All right, I'm gonna have to wrap this up here because I've got to move on to my next stream. But I will go over. Can you say why the Connies look different from most of the newer size ships? You asked that earlier, Ranger. And do you think they'll redo the exterior of the Connie? Probably not. But Connie's an old design. It shares a lot of its design with the Aurora, but that's because they're both from around the same time period. So, yeah, it's just an older design. The current Connie is like the Mark III Connie, but it's still, you know, old design. Well, like, it might be all kinds of things, like discrepancies like QT travel time. That's more of Star Citizen is a game in progress, and so they've tweaked times to make the gameplay work, rather than being slavishly attached to lore. It's not really a plot hole as much as it's a discrepancy in the current build of the game. But basically, the game isn't really finished. When the game is finished, you know, that kind of will mesh either with the lore or the lore will change. One of the two. Mark IV. Thank you, Darsh. Yeah, it's Mark IV. I think Mark IV was built in 2900s, so it's like with the 30th century. So, question: a couple of videos ago, you explained the lore of a scientist who worked on smithing for 5 years and then used it on something for 5 years and used it. It was not found again. Any ideas what could have happened to him? To pieces, you say? It either worked and he's somewhere else, or it didn't work and he's bits and pieces floating, just dust and echoes floating in because it exploded. His ship exploded. I've forgotten so many things in my life to retain all this Star Citizen information. Darsh, same. When's my mom's birthday? Fuck if I know. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you did enjoy this sort of thing, I can do this more often too. I have to pick specific days, maybe weekends or something like that. But I do like doing these streams. It helps out because it counts as content for YouTube for those of you watching this YouTube. And if you like these sorts of longer stuff, yeah, I'll do a little bit of it every so often. But yeah, for those of you who are here on YouTube, I will be releasing the religions video this week, hopefully Sunday. I'll have more time this weekend to kind of finish it up. So thank you all for watching, and like I say every time, remember, ex Historia ad Astra. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, when it ends, it'll be dumping you immediately onto my other YouTube video, where we're going to be playing not Star Citizen, but another game. So hopefully you can join us for that. But if not, that's fine. But stick around for that one.